Pizza, pizza.
Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I'm Mark Corbett, and with me is Mr. Matt Germain once again for a special RaysUp edition. And man, it's time to get excited, right? I mean, here we are. We got the boys back home playing it against the Yankees, and we've got the Detroit Tigers. The first two games are done, and no, that's right. We didn't win either one of them. Okay, so it's not a rubber game today.
Yeah, the storm clouds have been pretty thick recently, and I think Rays fans are feeling the brunt of that. I mean, it could be a hell of a lot worse when it comes to the record. I think we're one game under 500, but yeah, there's a lot of questions being asked. Some of them credible, some of them not. I get it. All teams end up slumping, right? So this is, I think a lot of fans are on the same page as me in this case, where it's better early than late in the season.
Oh, yeah. No, I hear you there. But the thing of it is, what kind of changes are being made now? If we look across there, of course, anytime you get a team vaulting its way down in the pit, the first thing they're going to do is point at the manager and say, Kevin Cash, he doesn't know what he's doing. And, I'm one of those people too. I've been sitting here on the sidelines watching Randy Arozarena, but he hasn't been looking all that great. I think there's may have been a change in the weather today, but he was like 7 for 77 in April. Good Lord.
Yeah, I did a breakdown on him, kind of examining, first of all, what he was swinging at. So what was in the zone and what was out of the zone? How often was he swinging at those things? And what kind of contact was he making on those pitches? And the good news is that he was generally recognizing the right pitches in the zone, as per his career stats. So there was no major changes on those fronts. What is different is that the amount of contact he was making at pitches outside the zone, especially far away from him, changed completely. And that could be a lot to do with the bulking up that he did in the offseason, where he's a little bit stiffer, he doesn't have the reach, or he's not getting to those pitches as quick as he used to. So I that's basically what I found out in a nutshell. So he was being attacked the exact same way as he's always been attacked, which is also interesting. And so they like to go low and away from him. And before he was able to do some damage, enough damage on those pitches that it was keeping him, fighting off pitches and making contact enough times, going the other way, getting some hits and home runs the other way, so that they couldn't just attack him that way. They had to change it up and go to other areas. What's happening right now is they're having so much success with that they don't really have to. So he's getting himself out with those things and being late and everything else. So right now, I think, he's got, like I was telling you before the show, he's gone through some superstitions that he's changing. So he took off like the bulky chains that he was wearing for a while. He has some things that he does before games, etc. And I heard that he got some new paraphernalia from the broadcast yesterday said that he was trying to change things up because he needs a change, and he knows that more than anybody else. He needs to get on the right page. And I noticed that as well. The attitude change yesterday was very different. Before that, like I said in my breakdown on Twitter before, was basically he looked like somebody having a really horrible time trying to figure out what is going on with me right now. I can't get out of this funk. And when Richie Palacios hit his home run, he basically just sat on the bench and he looked glum. Like he didn't look like he was happy for him like he normally would be. And it just spoke to his state of mind, basically. So I'm glad he's having success tonight, and hopefully that's the start of something new. And it looks like it's starting to ignite the rest of the offense there. So I'm glad to see it. And I want the Rays to score runs. They're a much happier bunch when they're scoring runs.
No doubt, no doubt. It certainly are the fans. And it was. I mean, it's a funk. You wonder what's going on, dude. And there are slumps. And if you don't change something, it doesn't have to be your form. It can be your mindset. And your mindset can change with, your surroundings, like whether it's the jewelry you're wearing, whether it's how you walk up to You make your walk-up music. I don't know, but just even those little bitty things can affect the mindset and your ability to be able to perform at a higher level. So tonight, Randy's already got a home run, and wow, okay. Like I said, the weather is breaking. Let's see how that rolls out with the rest of them, because the big issue for the Rays has been, over the last month. I mean, there's been some pitching issues and bullpen issues, but big part of it is there's no runs coming in.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was, the lack of extra base hits has just been mind-boggling. I think I looked up where the isolated power right now the Rays had before tonight was 113. And last year they were up in the 160s, 170s as a team for April. So and I they put on another stat where last April and they hit 59 home runs, and up before tonight they had only hit I think it was 19. So you're talking about what, 40, 40, 50 or 40, 40 difference between, month in April 2023 and the month of April 2024. So that's a huge difference and a huge drop. Now I know last April was historic and it doesn't happen every year. I get that, but it's such a similar lineup in terms of the personnel that it's shocking in a lot of ways. You could say, okay, it drops in half. That's less, that would be 27. So they'd have 9 more home runs than they have right now. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I think it'll come around, especially when they get Josh Lowe back. I was also talking to Junior Caminero's agent on Twitter, and he was mentioning, they have this guy in AAA who could help out the lineup.
Yeah.
and and I think the the extra year has been gained in terms of control. So now it's up to the Super 2 status issue. And that's what I was basically talking to him about online, where I was like, for the Rays, Super 2 is an extra year of control because they're not going to pay somebody that Super 2 salary, more than likely, unless they're really, 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 really good and they're a good place financially. Um, and like we saw with Tyler Glass now, that might not even matter. So
Yeah.
I think, Randy Arozarena is a Super 2 player, and by the time he gets to his last year of arbitration, the Rays aren't going to be able to pay that. And they know that. So for Junior, that extra year of control is also that Super 2 status. That also applies. So I think he understands that. He knows the game. And so does everyone else. And it's up to MLB and the MLBPA to get rid of that. It's so antiquated. They've dealt with a lot of issues that are good for the game that they've kind of resolved. I like the fact that they're giving rewards to people who start. The rookie of the year, gets an extra draft pick, yada yada yada. But it's not enough. They have to get rid of the whole thing. To me, it doesn't make any sense. They need to come up with a new system, agree to it, and move forward with that.
When you're looking at the players, it's interesting a conversation you're having with Junior Caminero's agent, because, yeah, you look at that kind of talent, you say, why aren't they bringing it up? And you're looking at, let's see, Randy, I think he's making about 8 million right now. So one thing is that Neander has never been hesitant to trade a good player for another good player, expecting greatness, especially if he can get a deal. And what do you think about Randy keeping him further after this year? Or did you just say
Uh,
that?
so I think they still have another, like, so let's say Randy had 2 more years left on his salary, sorry, of control. You can still get a lot for him in trade. So next year they would still have, what, 25, 26. So that is probably the time when they will look to probably move him, especially when you look down in the race system at who they have coming up. So this year they're going to have a lot of the guys that are right now in double A, like Drew Baker, Mason Hour, Herberto Hernandez, coming through the system and making it to triple A. Now, maybe they compete for a role on the 2025 Rays, maybe they don't, but those aren't the only players. Let's say Carson Williams comes up next year, and he might be here this year for the way he's playing right now, and he takes over shortstop. So Jose Caballero is another option that you can use in left field. Johnny DeLuca, who they got from the Dodgers, is also going to be competing for playing time in left field. They just got Ahmed Rosario for what, $1.5 million, and he's playing stellar right now. So it's not like they can't fill that left field position. The problem with Randy and the equation that you have to come up with is how badly do we want his bat in there in the playoffs? Because that is what they're playing for, is to win the World Series. And in the playoffs, we've seen over and over again that Randy is hard to stop, and he just gets electrified and becomes a machine. So how much value do you put to that monetarily? I'll just bring it up right now, because a lot of times what it comes up with the Rays, like they did with Tyler Glass now, they're willing to go to that last year, right, of control. They just have to make sure that it fits within the budget. So right now, Randy Arozarena is making $8.1 million. So next year, if he has a decent year from here on, to the end of the year, he's probably looking at somewhere between 12 and $15 million. So for the Rays, have they ever paid a position player that much? No, they haven't. They've never paid anybody more than $11 million. I think KK might have made 10.75, and then they declined the option for when he was supposed to make more, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, you're getting into that territory where it's breaking new ground. Now, could they? They did it for Charlie Morton. They've done a bigger contract than ever before with Zach Eflin, and it's part of why they're now at $100 million in terms of the budget, or just over $100 million. So it's really hard to tell the value. They have Randy Land. They've used him in marketing. They know the impact he has on the fans. They've dealt so many of their own players that fans love that they will take that into account. So what I would say overall is it depends a lot on what they do with the other players. So, for instance, if they're able to get, to move on from Brandon Lau or decline the option, that saves them some money. If they decline Phil Maton's option, then that saves them some money. If they move somebody that's going to be ARB3 or ARB2, that frees up more money, then they free up more money. So overall, they can start, weaning down the budget to the point where Randy still makes sense. Now, he would still have to perform this year at a high level that tells them he's going to be, a player that they want to have in their plans for 2025 and that postseason. So honestly, it's a 50-50 shot. Like, I'm trying to make up my mind today. There's no way that you can make up your mind today. I think ultimately what it'll come down with is if a team comes in there and really offers something aggressive that the Rays like, and there are pieces there that just end up making sense. And with the Rays, you always have to look at who they can also bring in. So they're always have that replacement guy, right? So for example, when they dealt away Evan Longoria, they also brought in Joey Wendell. So they knew what they were going to have in that role once they dealt Evan Longoria away. So I don't want to say it's the same scale, but if they have a replacement value that they like and add it to the players that they get in return, then I don't think they're going to back down from that kind of trade if they're offered it.
Well, as you were saying, Randy, sometimes we see him most toward the end of the season, and I guess he could be our own Mr. October. And, do you keep Reggie all the rest of the year? So if you're going to keep Reggie Jackson in October, I'd certainly keep Randy Arozarena all the way through October. Yes. So we'll see how that does. But, I keep looking still for more people to come up there. When he was still so cold, and I hope this is the turn, that home run earlier tonight, if he was that cold that long, do you keep him in the lineup? Do you keep him in that position? I understand we don't have Siri right now, and that's part of the problem with, I believe he's out with, I don't know if he's actually out, but has kidney stones, and that's making it difficult for him to play. but it seems like we should be seeing other players either coming from the bench or somewhere out there on the field when the ones that we were expecting more offense from it, we're not seeing it.
Yeah, that's been part of my big frustration with the way Kevin Cash has used his bench so far. Austin Shenton destroys right-handed pitching, or he did last year, both in AA and AAA. He was one of the fiercest AAA hitters against right-handed pitchers, and they're not giving him enough at bats to make use of that skill. In fact, they're crushing his confidence right now by keeping him on the bench so much that he's second guessing himself now in terms of whether or not he can play at this level. So not only are they hurting their own performance through April, it's one of the worst months I've seen since 2017 of this team, or maybe 2018. But anyways, it was one of those 2 years where you just feel like the lineup is lost. They don't know. They're just sliding guys in there. Remember when Brad Miller and all those guys were there and Logan Morrison, and they basically they never had to fight for their job. There was nobody there to steal it. They never used the bench. They just kept rolling the same guys out there and kept sucking the entire time. And it was okay. It was just the same guys. And I was like, why are we doing this? So that's what they've reverted to because they are not comfortable with the guys they have on the bench. Well, you can't get comfortable with them until you play them. So it's been frustrating. I get it. They want to win games. They have a series. They have guys that they trust more, whatever it is. But in baseball sense, like the Rays, the last 5 years have always been about matchups, right? Putting guys in positions to perform at high levels, and they're not doing that right now. What they're doing is opposite to that. So, for instance, tonight, Harold Ramirez shouldn't have been in the lineup. Austin Shenton should have, because Austin Shenton can destroy right-handed pitching, and it keeps the pitcher going. Instead of having so many right-handers that he can get in a groove, he should have to alternate back and forth at a minimum, 3 times during as he goes through the lineup. And the Rays haven't really been doing that at all, and it's been hurting their performance. Tonight, it's actually paying off. So they've actually put up 4 runs so far. So I'm encouraged by that, and I'm hoping that Randy's home run ignited something. Yandy's also gotten on base. So those two guys are so critical to this team. They absolutely do have to get going if the Rays are going to make a run at a playoff and then a playoff run afterwards. But I also put out, I would just jump in quickly here. I put out a thing. You remember Men in Black? They had the little clicker thing or the light to blind people's memories.
Yeah.
I said at some point in this season, we'll use that and we'll forget all about April because the Rays are not going to look anything like what they look like now. So one of the benefits that's happening with the Rays right now is Kevin Cash is learning a lot about Richie Palacios, about Ahmed Rosario, about Jose Caballero, all the guys that are new. He's being forced to use them 100%, right? So his trust and his knowledge of what they're capable of is going to be so much better when they are also on the bench often, a lot more often, because of the guys returning. So when Josh Lowe, Johnny Aranda, and Johnny DeLuca come back, those 3 guys are going to have roles. They're going to have a lot of playing time. So you're going to have such a strong bench, and Kevin Cash is now going to have a better awareness of those guys to the point where he can actually apply all of them in the maximum benefit of the team. More so than what he's doing right now with Austin Shenton and Nico Goodrum. So I don't think it's a long-term issue for Austin Shenton, but I think I'm hopeful that he goes to AAA very soon, gets regular playing time again, and can rebuild his confidence if it has been shattered at all, because I feel for him. I think he deserved better than what he's getting right now.
Well, there's no doubt he's sitting on the bench doesn't do anything for a mindset or attitude. So, yeah, I could see sending him down to AAA just for him to be able to get in the reps. One person you didn't mention who I've been watching, I won't say closely, but out of the peripheral vision, if you will, and that's Ben Rortvedt. When some of the other players have been struggling, he's been getting a few hits here and there. He's been doing a few things, to make things happen out there, I think, in the last few games. But I think tonight he hit a double?
Yep,
Oh,
he's a revelation, man. That guy, his framing is well above, or I don't want to say it is. So defensive stats with catchers are very, very finicky, and uh, and I know we tried as best we can to kind of refine them. I'm going by baseball savant standards here, where they say that Ben Rortvedt has been this year so far in the top five in terms of framing.
hmm.
His arm is way more accurate and stronger than Rene Pinto's, I believe. So when you combine those two things or three things, you realize how much of an impact he can have before he even steps to the plate. So the fact that his bat is being productive all of a sudden puts Rene Pinto, who the Rays were adamant was going to get the majority of the playing time when the season started, it puts that into question where all of a sudden they're like, well, do we keep doing that? Because Ben, you're right, is having so much success. And I didn't know this, but he lives in the Tampa area. I think he wants to stay there and he's very happy and loose. And as we said with Randy Arozarena's attitude wise, I think Ben is just in the right spot. We left, the Yankees where there was a ton of pressure, media, this, that, the other thing, and now he's in a spot where he's completely comfortable and able to just let the tools shine. So I'm glad he's having success, and man, the Rays have wanted a number one catcher, like a true number one catcher for so long.
Yeah.
I really hope he's it because that would be awesome.
Yeah, that fingers crossed on that one big time too. I mean, Rene Pinto, I liked what he was doing, but was it the top of the class? Probably not. Now,
Mhm.
if we jump for a moment to the other end of that battery and we're looking at the pitching, any expectations for the starters that you thought we'd see more of? I mean, I think Zach Eflin is performing as we like, and I think Pepio, I think, is doing pretty well. You correct me if I'm wrong.
Man, he's like a wild stallion right now. He gets on the mound and he gets angry at himself. He talks to himself when he's not doing the right thing. He's a perfectionist, and I love that about him. I remember Roy Halladay used to do similar things where he'd be mumbling under his breath, and it's fine. It's good to kind of uh, let guys that want to do things perfectly beat themselves up because normally it'll lead to great things. But I think the Rays starting pitching has not been a huge issue at all. It's been a positive overall. The Savali and Littell have both had bumps in the road here and there, but overall you have to be satisfied with what they offered. And they gave the Rays a chance to win a lot of games this year. Can't say the same about the pen. That's
No,
I
and
think the
that's
pen
where
lineup is where the issues are.
Well, and that's where I was going to go next. I mean, because even if you've got great pitching going on out there, if the offense didn't put anything on the board, well, it's pretty rough. And then, oh, by the way, after 6 innings, we're going to pull you, and we're going to depend on that pin. And a critical player in there was Pete Fairbanks, and man, he was struggling and struggling. And I know he had some issues. Wound up. He knew he did. My gosh, what was that host system? Somebody asked him how he was doing for the game, and I don't know how many times he said sucks, but he was there, and then he's got that stomach issue going on. He had all these different things to the point now where he's out to see on 15-day IL starting April 19th. So they're backdating it a bit. So he'll be back, I guess, in about 10 days or thereabouts. Then if you look at the rest of the lineup, I know, what do you got to say as far as we're looking at Davinsky and who was the other fella? Clevenger.
Yeah, the the pen. Oh man, I could talk 3 days about the pen. The so the first thing, remember they were in Colorado and Pete Fairbanks was blaming the balls.
Yeah.
I think it's just his feeling in his hands. The nerve issue is the problem, and now he's finally addressing it. I know he's blaming the balls, but I have a feeling that it was his condition that was making it so. So whatever the issue is with that and treatment he needs in order to get through it, I hope they get it resolved. Like whatever time it takes a month, takes 2 months, doesn't matter. Get it resolved so that he's there for the end of the season and the playoffs. Because that's when the Rays need him like the most, for sure. They can make do, they can piece it together. The Rays have used a million different pitchers and for saves. They know how to do that. And the guy you just mentioned, Garrett Clevenger, they used just lately, got his first save ever. And he's looking like a guy that's amping it up where he's hitting 97, 98 from the left side. That's extremely tough. So he's looking a little bit like a Jose Alvarado kind of possibility, right? Where he could close some games. Doesn't have to be there all the time. What they're missing is a guy from the right side doing the same. Jason Adam has, for the most part, kind of, I think, would be the guy that people name, right? If they're looking for a closer from the right side, if Pete Fairbanks isn't there. Sean Armstrong, when he's not opening, is definitely a guy that has become dependable. And then I don't have much to knock about when he's used as a reliever. He's a lot more efficient or effective than he is as an opener. But I like what he's done the last 2 years, so he's solid. So now we're looking at the rest of the guys, and that's where the bulk of the problem has been. So Phil Maton, to me, seems to have worked out the last 3, 4 outings that he's had much better command, execution. He's getting into his groove. So I've liked the direction he's heading in. That's positive. What isn't positive is Colin Pache is down about 1.5 to 2 miles an hour on his fastball, and the same with his slider. And he's not using his slider nearly enough. So he's become predictable and slower, which isn't a good combination when part of your game is people chasing and your deception. So to me, he's in a very precarious position. And I've actually interviewed Colin before, talked to him about injuries he suffered and the long road back, all that kind of stuff, where I feel for him because I know, and in one way, you don't want to push the limits of what your arm can do to the point where, like Tyler Glasnow did, you
Right.
grip it, rip it, and you really rip it, and you end your career. But at the same time, you want to be able to amp it up enough to be effective. So you're playing that fine, like we can talk about it here. Adding 1 mile an hour, it doesn't feel this like something you can control with a dial, right?
Yeah.
It's a physical thing you're doing with your body, and your mind is pushing things, and it's not an exact science, is what I'm trying to say. So I feel for him but to me, one thing that I looked at today was that in 2022, he was more effective, in my opinion. And what he was doing was using a curveball as well as his slider and his fastball, and it was giving people a different look, different feel, and it was actually providing better deception overall. So if he's not going to regain that velocity and they want him to work that back in, he does have 3 options. They could send him to AAA to work on it. I know they trust him a lot and they have faith in him and everything else. But at some point, sometimes you do have to do that with relievers so they can tweak some things. So that might be something they want to look at. But the one to me that is the most, you ask relievers to do something completely out of the sort, and sometimes it crushes them. And Chris Davinsky right now looks all kinds of not himself. They asked him to stretch out to be a longer option, basically in terms of innings pitched, and he hasn't been the same since. Even though I think a lot of people had issues with him last year in terms of overall production, but he's somebody that I think is very close to losing his role with the Rays if he's not careful, or if he doesn't turn it around quickly. Because right now he's just getting lit up like a Christmas tree, and it's not pretty. There isn't much, he's getting older a little bit too, and there isn't much different that he can do. It's just, the changeup. If you're sitting on the changeup with Chris and you're good at hitting changeups, you're gonna light him up, and there's nowhere he can go to avoid that, and it's getting to be obvious, basically.
We don't do commercials on this show, but I do want to kind of point to something on Pete Fairbanks. He and his wife have got a foundation raising funds for Turner syndrome, and that's something to touch their family with a child. And I won't say any more than that. You all can look it up. But a lot of players out there do great things for organizations. Sometimes it's foundations they put together, and locally You see Pete Alonso of now and then. I know I saw where he got a tractor for, I think it was the West Tampa Little League, but there's things where like what Pete's working with and it's a health issue. And I just wanted to point people in that direction because I think, well, I see also as far as unless I'm on the charitable route here, look for Neil Solondz, the one of the radio announcers for the Rays. He's very big with promotion on Purple Stride, and so find ways to support the Rays above and beyond buying equipment or hats. There's a lot of things you could do also with that, much like what that Pete Fairbanks and his wife have done as well.
Absolutely. Do you know if the Rays put that on their sites, like all the organizations that their players are supporting? They should. Like if they don't already. I don't know if that there's legal issues with that and whatnot. But
I don't know, but it's worth investigating.
hmm.
I can't imagine that they wouldn't, at least in social media in some fashion, but I don't know that for a fact. I know that Neil Solondz puts that out on Twitter and his account there, but I don't know that I've actually heard him speak of it on the radio with Purple Stride. And as far as talking about Pete Fairbanks and his wife, I believe I saw something with Trisha Whitaker in Bally, talking about that foundation. So the word's getting out there. I don't know whether or not the Rays are actually putting it on their site, but the word is getting out there.
That's good to know.
Yeah. In a completely different vein,
Hmm.
it's worth noting, like I was saying earlier, the manager is always the one to get it first to get all the criticism from the fans. And Kevin Cash has reached that point, boys and girls,
Hmm.
where he needs 4 wins. That's right, 4 wins to surpass Joe Madden as the all-time Rays manager by wins. So this uh, Tiger series wasn't going to make that happen, but hopefully he'll be able to scratch that down to 3 at the close of tonight's game.
Yeah, he's done, like, I know I give him flack sometimes for some of the stuff he does, and then you would with any manager, right? Nobody is perfect, and nobody does things the way you would do them. But you have to do a lot of things right to get to that point of what you're saying in terms of wins. So, congrats to him, prematurely before he gets there. We all know he's going to soon, so that's a huge feat for sure.
Here's something too. We were talking at the beginning as far as our pitchers tonight, and let's see, that's Mr. Tyler Alexander, if I remember correctly, and
Yep.
he played with the Tigers.
Yes, he did. The Rays plucked him off of their waiver wire, basically. He wasn't going to make the team. You can tell by the way their pitching staff is this year that you can see why they didn't really have room for him, because they're all, firing on all cylinders right now. Um, but I can't remember if it was only cash or if they had a player to be named later as part of it. But either case, he had some success with them as well. But just apparently not enough to stick around for their coming out party. I call this year their coming out party because they're finally starting to put, the pieces together after gathering a lot of talent through the years, and I think they have the right manager in place as well. They're doing a good job, basically.
Yeah, the Tigers doing better than I thought they would, and certainly are tonight, or I should say this series. But if you look across the field, and a guy who just struck out here at the top of the fourth, Parker Meadows, and
Mhm.
that rings a bell too with another guy who was a Tiger for a short while and who'd been with us prior to that, and that's Mr. Austin Meadows. But Parker Meadows, his brother, is playing with the Tigers as well tonight. So it's interesting. We talk about that quite a bit about how the interstitching, if you will, from one team to another or one player to another, whether it's a brother, a father, there's just so many different combinations out there that you're going to find. Um, here's one for you too. I read this. I haven't looked it all up just yet, Matt, but saw where Tommy Pham has signed a contract with the White Sox minor league.
Oh man. So you touched on two different, like completely opposite, thing. So people will say that the Major League Baseball is a community, right? You get to know everybody. There's you're right. It's like everybody. I'll give you a perfect example when it comes to the Rays. you look through the Rays roster, there are so many players from the Cleveland Indians organization on the Rays right now. It's ridiculous. And why? Because they have a relationship with Terry Francona through Kevin Cash,
Yep.
where they can ask all the questions they want because of that familiarity and that trust. They're able to bank on certain things of what they're looking for. I think half the lineup tonight, or just over half, has roots in the Cleveland organization with the Rays. So it's it's to that point. So when you're looking at Tommy Pham, I just want to say he's burnt a lot of bridges.
Yeah.
And when you end up signing a minor league deal with an organization that is, like tearing it down to the studs is going to be an understatement by the time they're done. I don't know where they go basically to try to amp things up. I don't think they can spend their way out of it. They're going to have to make the most of their assets. And I do think they've made some changes recently with their front office that get that. It's just a matter of timing now and doing it, probably closer to the trade deadline, where they're going to change the majority of their tradable assets. And Tommy Pham could become one if he gets some playing time and gets the call up. But I like the fire that Tommy Pham has. I think he has value in there. Like he's a take no prisoners kind of person. So he could be a value to a playoff team that's looking to make sure they have good backup options and bench options and want to add a little bit of fire to the bench.
Yeah, Tommy Fire. That's a good way of putting it. Tommy is always he's expected a lot of himself, but he's never been hesitant to expect the same from the rest of the guys on the field as well or at bat. And I don't think that's always made him friends, but he has a passion for the game that's second to none, I believe, as far as commitment. And I I wish him well, but like you're talking about an organization, you said, yeah, I'm going to try to get Nick Morawski on here from Good Guys Talk Back to talk about the White Sox. But he's saying, Mark, what do you want to talk about? I said, well, I want to talk about where do you go from here? That's what I want to talk to them about because I think they've maybe see is it 3 wins thus far this year, if that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's I think some podcasters have started a conversation today. They put it out where they were saying, will they get to double digits by June?
Oh Lord. Oh,
That was the question. And I was, oh man, that is harsh. That's,
jeez.
and that's that I want to say they have a very proud fan base and a very uh, you know, they're used to kind of dominating in that division, or being near the top and at least in the middle, but not at the bottom. I don't think I can remember the last time the White Sox were at the bottom in that division. So it's a bit of a shock to them, I think.
Ooh, yeah, that is a bit of a tester this year, but double digits by June. Yeah. Okay. Well, we will see. And I wish every team well, but I hate to see that when it happens. A team goes that deep. Let's see what are we doing right now with the game. It's bottom of the fourth, and it's 4-1 with the Rays leading. That's good news.
Yep.
What do you get? What do you got? Anybody on base out there at the moment?
Yeah. Harold Ramirez got a single and he just stole second. So his speed this year has been a revelation. I don't want to say I didn't see it coming at all. He runs hard. He's always run hard. But his weight loss and his power running game has really taken another step, way further than I think anybody expected this year. So I'm really happy to see that. It's adding to his value at a time when the bat isn't really going as hard as it normally does. Along with Yandy and Randy, his bat's also been slumping a little bit too. So I think it's adding in a different way for him to contribute when the bat is a little bit colder.
Well, just watch him from home plate to first, running there at such a clip. It's just
Mm.
been amazing. Now, some of that they've done a few things with the runners lane there too. I think that's a little bit more. You can a little wider area for them to run. Seemed like sometimes you could be out of the lane real quick and have an umpire call you for it. But I haven't seen much of that this year.
Yeah, no, they've changed the rule now where you're allowed to be on the inside of the line. You don't have to be on the outside. So as long as you're running in a straight line, you're not zigzagging or doing some kind of crazy stuff, or going looping all the way in or loop all the way out. I think you're good to go.
Stay in the
So no,
dirt.
yeah, exactly. So I think, the thing that Harold Ramirez is doing right now is great because the Rays need his athleticism, I guess, with the guys that they have right now, because some of the guys they have on the bench aren't always going to be able to be the guy they call on the run. So it's good to see.
All righty. I'm looking at this. I'm trying to think what's coming up next. We're going to be wrapping this up here in a bit. And I don't have anything else to say except that I'm going to be looking forward to heading up to Chicago and seeing how the race. Yeah, I know, brother. Oh, I know. It's going to be an interesting weekend, and looks like the weather's going to be crap. So no dome either. So we'll see. I may be reselling these tickets to somebody who's lives in Chicago for some future trade date. But
The Brewers aren't far, is all I'm gonna say.
yeah, yeah. Well, we're gonna head up there too, maybe. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward. That's going to be our little busy weekend until we get back next week. So
Mhm.
if I'll share some of my fun that we experienced there. Anything that you're going to tell us we should look out for on our trips to Milwaukee or Chicago?
Well, I loved Chicago. I had a really great time there, and it just, if you can get out to some of the House of Blues and all those things. They're awesome places to go. We went, the guy that was opening the show for that night, played to a level that I had never heard before. It was just amazing. So get out there and see some of the greatest music places I think in the country are there. So really enjoyed Chicago as a whole. Um, and I think Wisconsin is one of those places where you can actually tell that they're sports fanatics. They take that to a little different level, especially when it comes to beer. So if you're looking for a good time, definitely that's the right place to go. I will say that the stadium there in Milwaukee is one that I want to visit because I haven't been there specifically, but I do want to head out there. When I get to Wrigley, I'm going to do Milwaukee at the same time, I think.
That sounds like a good plan. Yeah. Well, I will let you know from our experience how that all turns out. Should be a lot of fun, a lot of fun. But
Absolutely.
right now, I just want to see our Rays continue on in this game and not be swept at home by the Tigers. So we'll see. I mean, I just don't know what to expect with them sometimes. But they got a good start now, top of the fifth, 4-1. We'll see how it goes.
I'll provide some hope that I watched today Brendan McKay go through another 3 innings without allowing a run. He hasn't allowed a run yet this year, so he's pitched 12 innings without allowing a run. Completely dominant, working the top and the bottom of the zone. He was lacking a little bit of control today. He hit a batter and he had a wild pitch, but overall his stuff is looking really good. I think that if you look at his innings pitched, and I posted him today on Twitter, he hasn't exceeded 20 innings in any year since 2020. So I don't think the Rays can expect, a lot of innings from him this year. So I'm hoping they don't burn them all in the minors. And when you have a pen that's struggling, why not bring him up, fair, I don't want to say right now, but fairly quickly so that he can actually have an impact and see how his stuff plays at the MLB level as well. So when we're looking at possibly moving guys out of the pen, he'd be an option that I would look at for sure. And the other guy would be Manuel Rodriguez, who I think is ready for the show right now. He is probably the best reliever they have in AAA. So those are two guys that are coming that are going to help. And Josh Lowe, I think, is going to be up next week,
Wow.
maybe within the next 10 days, let's say. So that's a huge thing. The Rays are going to really love having him, not only as a player, but his attitude. Like, to me, he's probably one of the leaders on the team when it comes to that, cheerleading other people, could be being the glue guy that everybody is always kind of gravitating towards. So I don't think his loss has been mentioned enough in terms of the impact. He last year in April, he hit 385 as an average. So you're talking
Jeez.
about the guy who actually, drove the start of the season the most. He led the Rays offense in April. So his loss was massive. And then you add Brendan Lau, yada. So what I'm saying is the Rays sunlight is coming. And they're going to shine in May and June. Don't worry. We're going to be above 500 and things will look better.
All right. I love your optimism, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all again for joining Matt and I today here on Baseball Biz on Deck. And we're going to be looking forward to a great time in Chicago and Milwaukee. Hopefully, it won't be too cold. And we'll be back next week. Brr, yeah. And oh gosh, I'll just say one last thing. I'm tired of seeing a little Caesar guy in the trop.
Pizza.
Yeah. I hear you.
All right. Thanks again, everybody. And we look forward to talking with you all again real soon. Just remember, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, Pandora, Amazon Music, and of course here, and also on baseballbizondeck.com. Please go ahead and love us, like I said, and leave your reviews. Also want to leave special thanks to Take RUX for the music rocking forward.